What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the SchuZ Show. I'm your host, SchuZ Shoemaker. And for those of you that have been wondering where I'm at, well, there's been some crazy stuff that's gone down since the last time I was live on here. But you guys can go check out some of those details on a post I made yesterday. But to give you guys a brief little update on what's going to be going down, the SchuZ Show will remain. The only difference now is that this is going to be primarily a boxing show. Now, don't get me wrong, there's still going to be occasional basketball guests that's going to come on. That is something that's always going to be near and dear to me. I love basketball a ton, and there will most certainly be lots of basketball guests that will be coming on the show throughout the time, including possibly even tomorrow. I might be making a big announcement tomorrow for who that guest may be. However, in terms of the content, what I'm going to be discussing and the vast majority of guests, it will be all within the realm of boxing. Also, I have announced that there's going to be a continuation of the faith-based concept that I started last year. For those of you that were tuning in, Eternal Echoes was something that I was doing within either a separate different show, or it was going to be a completely different segment within the show. Now it's going to be switched over to Follow of the Cross, a podcast. You guys can go check that out on my YouTube channel. Go subscribe to it. It's actually available. You guys can go check it out on my SchuZ account. If you guys scroll down a little bit on my home screen, it should be there. Give you guys the option to go and subscribe to that. That's going to be a show that I'll be probably doing about once every week or two. That's going to be up in the air, though, so don't necessarily depend on that. I'll let you guys know as those things come out, but I still want to make sure that's a key part of my life, the most important thing in my life, let me clarify. And so I want that to be something that I still invest in. That being said, though, this is officially going to be a boxing show. So let's get right into the SchuZ Show today. All right, right before I got live, maybe about 45, 50 minutes ago, there was breaking news that I got to start the show off with. Dmitry Bivol, who is regarded by most of people's opinions the top 5 pound guy, in my opinion, he's number 4 in the world. He has now vacated his WBC light heavyweight championship and will not go through with the mandated fight against David Benavidez. Right then and there, I know there's already a polar division right now going on between whether or not people think, did Dmitry Bivol duck David Benavidez? In my opinion, my answer to that is absolutely not. And actually, let me go even a step further. If you think that Dmitry Bivol decided to go and duck David Benavidez in these negotiations, that is absolutely ludicrous. That's a crazy statement to make. And why would I say that? Well, you have a guy in Artur Beterbiev, who most people will view as a top 5, 6, 7 pound per pound guy. David Benavidez is not in that category yet. And so you're saying that a guy of Artur Beterbiev's caliber, who many believe is actually probably a better guy than David Benavidez at this point in time, you're telling me that he's going to duck David Benavidez to fight potentially the better fighter. Yeah, that doesn't really sit well with me right there. That seems like a crazy accusation to even make against Bivol. So, my opinion on that is, listen, he's not ducking Benavidez, and actually I think that fight will happen in the future. But what's going to likely happen now is that we're going to get a trilogy. And if there was any fight that's supposed to have a trilogy, it's this one. You have two guys that are, in most people's opinions, a top 5 pound for pound guys, both fighting each other. The record is 1-1. How do you not possibly have a trilogy there? The true boxing fans want that fight to happen as well. I get it. It's not a PBC guy. It's not a guy that all those guys in America would love to root for. And I love David Benavidez. But there's a time and place for that to happen. October of this year, the trilogy fight going down most likely in Riyadh season, I have to imagine, needs to happen, and I'm glad it's going to get done. And then once that fight is done, the winner of that fight can then go ahead and fight David Benavidez. That's assuming that Benavidez fights again within that time span, and it will most likely be against a guy where he's going to then become the WBC champion of the world. And we will then have in 2026, likely springtime, a potential undisputed fight once again between the winner of David Benavidez. Let's say he obviously decides to win that fight, probably against Callum Smith, but we'll see what happens there. And the winner of the trilogy between Artur Beterbiev and Dmitry Bivol. And then we get that mega fight next year in 2026. I see nothing wrong with this outline here. And so for those of us that want to go sit around and act like this is some big ducking scheme of Bivol trying to duck Benavidez, come on, guys, chill out. I get some of you guys are big fans of David Benavidez. You guys love PBC. This is not no ducking episode right here. This is going just according to plan, and I've got no issue with that. Now, also breaking news that just literally came out about a minute before I started the show up. Richardson Hitchens, he's now going to officially be defending his IBF super lightweight world title against George Kambosos on June 14th. This was the date that Eddie Hearn suggested. It was possible that Kambosos was going to get this fight after his last fight against Jake Wiley just a couple weeks ago. The only question in this situation was the cut going to heal up on time? And based upon this, it appears that they believe and are confident that the cut will be healed on time. What's my early prediction on this fight? Well, I think Hitchen's going to absolutely destroy him. Kambosos is a good fighter, but he has a lot. I mean, he's going to bring a lot of money into this fight as well. He is a big name. He's been well managed throughout his career. However, Richardson Hitchens is more prepared for this fight. If we were talking about properly building Kambosos up for a world championship fight again, it probably would have been doing another fight or two in preparation for it. However, I get it. You get a world championship fight. You're not turning that down if you're Kambosos. It was already the one that was in the works for a long time. He just had to beat Wiley. He did that. And so I'm not 100% against it. From Hitchen's standpoint, it's going to do great at Madison Square Garden. The theater, to clarify, obviously not the Madison Square Garden that we all know it as, the big place, but it's still a big venue. It's still a great place to fight at. And so this is a good fight, I believe. Richardson Hitchens, Kambosos will be interesting. I think Hitchenson will win that quite easily, to be honest with you guys. But that's what I've got in terms of that. Now, I do want to touch up on a couple other things in boxing news before we break down all the fights that happened this past weekend. And one of those is that throughout the past couple of days, specifically about Saturday started really getting going, was that we started hearing about the Shakur Stevenson, William Zepeda talks. Shakur is essentially saying that Turkey is lowballing him in terms of the offer on the table. Now, are the numbers confirmed? We don't have that information at this point in time, but it wouldn't shock me. Let's be honest right now. What Turkey wants is the best fighting each other. And if we're going to be genuinely 100% authentic with each other right now, that's not a great fight to be made. The way William Zepeda looked in his past two fights looks to me like a guy that's nowhere near ready to fight Shakur Stevenson. This looks like a guy that's going to potentially, he'd get lucky if he even gets 2 or 3 rounds won in a fight with Shakur Stevenson. Hence, it goes 12 rounds even. So when I look at this fight, William Zepeda goes the first time, and in a lot of people's opinions, he lost to Tevin Foster. Then the second time around, yes, he beats Foster, or Farmer, sorry, not Foster, Tevin Farmer. But in that second fight, Farmer clearly had an injury. Now, he won't go out and explain what's going on in that fight. He's not discussing those things. But there was something off with Farmer early in that fight, and Farmer still was able to go steal some rounds from Zepeda. And listen, I like Tevin Farmer, but there's a big gap between Tevin Farmer and Shakur Stevenson. And so if you're telling me that we're going to potentially go and see Shakur Stevenson, William Zepeda fight, this is not even going to be a competitive fight. And I'm really not even that excited for it. If it's the fight on the table that happens, sure, it's a good fight. Yes, it's a step up from Josh Padley for Shakur Stevenson, but by no means is this the fight that I really, really, really want to go and watch. And so if you're Turkey, you're looking at this and saying, no, this is not a big fight I want to put a lot of money towards. It's not that good. William Zepeda is not that guy, and Shakur Stevenson is going to easily destroy him. That's not a great fight to make according to this Turkey standards, the way he likes to produce. So it doesn't shock me. Now, do I think the fight will still get made? Absolutely. They're going to negotiate, but I do not think it's going to be under a Riyadh season promotion. So we'll see what ends up happening there, though. Another thing that happened earlier today, Diego Pacheco has now withdrawn from his ordered fight against Christian Billy for the WBC interim super middleweight belt. This has now been confirmed. This was the rumor, speculation, and I get it. A lot of people are upset. There's been a lot of going back and forth between Christian and Billy. Who is he going to fight next? We know we had a fight already lined up just a couple months ago. He ends up pulling out of that one. And then we're looking at a situation where he's going after Diego Pacheco now, and that would have been a good fight, entertaining fight for the fans. However, I don't think that fight was ever going to happen. You know, when we look at the business prospects of building up a young fighter, Pacheco's only 23 years old. He's got time to develop. And if you're Eddie Hearn, you have a potential superstar a rising superstar right now, you're not going to go all out and give him a situation where he's going to fight a guy in Christian and Billy's hometown, in his place where he's going to have the home advantage. And you're not going to put him in that situation. It makes sense. From a business perspective, I get it. Could this fight happen next year? Possibly. But it never made any sense for that fight to go down this year, next at least, for Diego Pacheco, considering that his best opposition he's fought so far is Steve Nelson, who was a good test for him. But going from Steve Nelson all the way up to Christian Billy, whom some consider to be the second or third best guy at the super middleweight division, is too big of a gap. So who do I think is going to fight? Well, some of the rumors are already coming out. Trevor McCumbee, the guy that just went and gave Caleb Plant some good rounds this last year. So does that make more sense for me? I do think so. So that's what I think we could expect from that standpoint. Now, let's go break down some of the fights that happened this past weekend, because there weren't too many mega fights, right? There was a world championship fight. We had some good fights, a lot of fights that happened, but nothing that was of a massive skew that's essentially as we're going to be getting this weekend, right? Because we obviously have Stanionis and Boots fighting this weekend. So let's break down what happened this past weekend, though. Let's start off going from Janibek. He goes out there, he gets a TKO in round 5, a nasty TKO as well. But that was an easy win. Nobody thought he was going to lose that fight. He did play with his food a little bit, got some extra rounds under the belt for himself, which that's good to see. However, can we stop messing around in this division right now? 160 is a division that is very, very top heavy. And then you have all these other guys. There's some prospects, some guys working their way up. But there's a big gap between those guys and the rest of them. And so I'm sick and tired of seeing these guys circle around, finding these guys that are not that good. For Adames, obviously he's excluded from this discussion. He just fought Hamza Shiraz, gave Shiraz the work in that fight. Now Shiraz, I know he's injured, so is he better than what he looked like in that fight? Possibly. But from what we see right now, he's the best of that next group. But right now it's down to 3 guys. Carlos Adames, Arislandi Lara, and Janibek. We need someone to start unifying up in here now. This has been too long of these guys going around beating up on guys that they are much, much, much better than. This is a weight class that we should have an undisputed guy within the next 365 days. Whatever way it works. If it's Adames and Lara fighting, so if it's Adames and Janibek, or Adames and Janibek, or Lara and Janibek, whatever the combination is, the next fight for these guys has to be somebody to make a unification fight. 160 is not a good division. These 3 guys should be able to easily defeat anybody else in this weight class, except for the other 2 guys I mentioned. So this is what needs to happen now. One of those guys needs to unify, and we need to make an undisputed championship at 160 within the next 365 days, which I think is possible if these guys want to start stepping up and make that thing happen. Then we head over to Australia. Tim Tszyu makes his return to his homeland and defeats Joey Spencer in round 4 TKO. This was a big fight, an incredible atmosphere, and Tim Tszyu went out there and handled business. He beat up Joey Spencer real good in 4 rounds. He made himself look good. And listen, I'll be just to judge and critique a little bit. I always want to critique guys and mention the pros and the cons. It's always things to learn from. What I did notice, though, about that win, while it was dominant, it was great to see him have his confidence back. In my opinion, the one thing I was a little bit uneasy about that I want to critique in that fight was that Tim Tszyu didn't really move his head much. I know that's how he's been traditionally throughout his career, right? That's the way he fought, and it looked like he was Tim Tszyu again out there. However, you have to adjust as a fighter. The higher levels you go, the more competition, the way guys evolve, the guys up and coming, so on and so forth, you have to continue to develop as a fighter. Otherwise, not so good things are going to happen to you. And that's what we experienced 6 months ago when he fought Bakram Mirzavaliev in Orlando. He didn't move his head much. He got caught multiple times, and that fight was over, I believe, with 3 rounds, if I'm not mistaken. He did not have a lot of head movement. And if he wants to get back to a world title championship type of level, he's going to have to improve that aspect. Because you look at guys in that weight class right now, Sebastian Fundora has the height advantage on him once again. Obviously, that's a whole discussion we go back into again. Not against a rematch. I actually hope they had to do a rematch down the line. But, he's going to have a height advantage on him once again. You're going to have to be able to duck those and move out of the way. Bud Crawford's a whole other monster. I don't know if he's ever going to fight at 154 again. I don't think he will. But that's obviously Bud Crawford. I don't think he'd ever beat Bud anyways. Then you obviously go down and you have Bakram rematch. That's not something I want to see anytime soon. But then you got guys, Virgil Ortiz going to be a champion in the near future. Jesus Ramos is a guy that's going to be a champion, I think, potentially champion in the near future. There's a lot of guys. He's going to have to continue to evolve if he wants to get to that stage. So what's on the table for Tim Tszyu next? Well, there's a few options now. When I look at Tim Tszyu, you could make a big jump. He has the name, he has the branding, he has all this stuff where he could potentially go position himself to get a rematch with Fundora. Is that the fight that I want him to make? Absolutely not. Not right now. Because you go from 2 tough losses, both of which gave you severe injuries, and I think you need to make sure you kind of step back and rebuild yourself. So there's only one fight that really makes sense here. Joey Spencer was fine. What's one step up from that? Who is a fight, now that I think about it, that would have been mega, what was it now, a year or 2, whatever ago? Oh, I know, Keith Thurman. That's the fight that needs to happen. Listen, the negotiations seem to already be on the table. I think that's the fight that's going to happen, and it makes the most sense for both guys. Both guys came off their own different layoffs for one reason or another. Both just had big comeback wins in Australia over the past couple of weeks. Why not fight each other in Australia once again? You know it's going to sell well. You know it's a fight that was once big, and it could easily be that once again. And listen, the winner of that then sets himself up to be a legitimate threat at the 154 division once again. So that's what I think needs to happen for Tim Tszyu and Keith Thurman for that fact, is that they need to go match up and fight each other once again. Let's head over now. We go out to the UK, and we have a big fight there. Two things occurred. I'm going to go with the co-main event first because that gave the most controversy of the entire week. And as of today, we have an update. The BBFC, they expect to make a decision about how things move forward with the David Adelaide and Gianni TKV controversy at a meeting on Wednesday. Listen, there's only one answer for how the Adelaide and TKV controversy comes to an end. And it should be a very, very quick conversation with the BBFC. This is a no contest. Rematch is immediate. Was anybody going to debate that? Listen, what happened in that fight was outlandish, especially in a sport like boxing. Listen to me. There is refs that screw up games in basketball and football and soccer, football, however you want to call it, rugby, you name it. Refs mess things up sometimes. Refs will make mistakes in boxing as well, but it cannot be to the extent in which we witnessed on Saturday. What happened on Saturday was outlandish. It was unfathomable. You put a guy where he's going to get his head knocked down and a brutal hit where eventually it leads to him getting KO'd because of the fact that you're going to say break, you're going to pull his arm down, leave him wide open, exposed, and Adelaide's able to get a clean shot to the head, knocks him down, and it eventually leads to a TKO. That is beyond messed up in my opinion. If anything comes of this other than the BBFC to determine that this is a no contest fight, then this is going to be outlandish, and I think everybody will stand with TKV in the situation. It was absolutely ridiculous. And the way it was handled was messed up as well. Because listen, I tried going into some of the rule books now. How could the situation have been better handled in the moment? And listen, I'm not a rules expert, so if I get any of these things wrong, please let me know in the comments. But personally, if I were to go back, if I were the ref in that situation, and this occurs, you need to admit fault immediately. And by doing that, you could have essentially said it was a foul in that situation. Now, typically that is reserved for low blows in a fight. But I think this would have been worthy of a review, seeing what happens, and letting TKV recover 5 minutes. If he is unable to recover, that means it's going to be ruled a no contest, and we move on from there. That's how it should have been handled. But you put a man in danger, gets brutally hurt, and then gets KO'd a few minutes later. Absolutely ridiculous officiating in that situation. He should be ashamed of himself, and the BBFC needs to make sure that this gets handled appropriately. Because that was ridiculous in how it happened. And I don't want to take anything away from David Adelaide. Obviously, who knows what would happen in that fight. And at that situation, was there a dirty hit? You could say whatever it was, but this is a situation the ref needs to make sure he gets in the middle of and handles that from a ref standpoint. So that's how I believe that situation needs to be handled. Let's go to the main event in that card, though. Filip Hrgović defeats Joe Joyce, unanimous decision. Can I be honest here? When I look at that fight, I think that there's a big gap between Hrgović, Joe Joyce, and those guys at the heavyweight division. I was not too impressed with Hrgović. Did he win that fight? Absolutely. But does beating Joe Joyce at the current state in which Joyce is in really mean that much to me? Not much. Does it set him up for a decent fight coming up, though? Sure. And that's why I think when you look at it, could Filip Hrgović in his next fight go fight Zhilei Zhang? I think that's the fight to make. A rematch there would be great to see. But when I look at this, I didn't walk away too impressed with either guy. Hrgović has his moments. I think he's fine. He just stopped being so inactive, but we'll see what happens. I think Zhilei Zhang is the fight to make there. As for Joe Joyce, that's really what I want to emphasize on right now, though. Joe Joyce has given us some great moments in boxing. He is quite the character. Most people heading into this fight believe that Joe Joyce should never have stepped foot in a ring again. We are already witnessing the damages that has happened to his mind and his brain from boxing before this fight even happened. And he goes in there and he looked good body-wise. He did better than I actually thought he would do. However, the way he fights, he just takes shots. He eats them over and over again. He is the juggernaut for a reason, and it's just not good. He just needs to get out. He should never even come close to a ring ever again. There's no point in trying anything. I know some people are rumoring, hey, could he fight this guy? No. Listen, Joe Joyce needs to retire. It's time to hang it up. Whatever you have left in the mind of yours, keep it and move on from boxing. You don't owe anybody anything. You should have more than enough money. You have a good enough image and brand and fan base where you can go make money in other ways. Stop fighting, Joe Joyce. It's time to hang up the cleats, put down the gloves, put down the shoes, step away from boxing. There's no more reasons for you to go step in that ring again. And that leads me to the final card I want to discuss of the night, of the weekend. Top rank. Let's go to the 3 big cards that were in the main card for that one. Abdullah Mason. He goes out there, gets a round 7 TKO. Listen, it's straightforward. Abdullah Mason is special. It's not a matter of if he's going to be world champion. It's only a matter of when. His ability to fight at his age, his IQ, his power, everything about him is sensational at his age. And I don't know if he's going to be a champion at 135, 140, depends what it is, because he looked big in that ring. Like, don't get me wrong, for a 135 guy, he was towering over his opposition. He looked big in that ring. And so if it's going to be 135, 140, whatever it is, Abdullah Mason is going to be a problem. He's going to be a world champion in the very, very near future. And so that's all I got to say. He is good. He is the real deal. He is special. The co-main event, I want to say this. Lindolfo Delgado, he defeats Elvis Rodriguez by majority decision. I personally view the scorecards were a little bit off. I had Elvis Rodriguez winning that fight, but I'm not going to throw a big fit about this because I see with the rounds it could have went either way. It was a very, very close fight. Here's what I want to say, though. Elvis Rodriguez is the more talented fighter there. But it felt to me in that fight that he was picking and choosing when he wanted to be great. There was times in those mid to later rounds where it concluded with him getting the knockdown that Elvis Rodriguez looked really good. He was utilizing his jab. He had great distance. He controlled the pace of the fight. He really had Delgado in a pickle. He was having him just not be able to fight his way, and Elvis Rodriguez was in complete control. And then he hurts Delgado, and I understand wanting to conserve yourself a little bit, but I'm sure he's regretting that now. And he decides to kind of shift his game plan again. Goes back to what he was doing in the beginning of the fight. And in my opinion, it just makes no sense to me. Why are you going to go put yourself in a situation where you see how much success you're having at one point in the fight, and then you go and switch it all around again? So for me, if Elvis Rodriguez wants to be great, he has the ability to do just that. But he needs to be consistent. Stick with what works. Don't keep going to these other things that don't work. Control the pace with your jab and go to work. And you would have won that fight. Plain and simple. The final fight I want to touch up on that happened this past weekend, Richard Torres Jr., he defeated Vanello in a unanimous decision. I had a mixed emotions and opinions on this fight as it went through the duration of the fight. From the beginning of the fight, Torres Jr. looked really, really good. And then all of a sudden, Vanello decides to switch his game plan around, utilize his distance, and all of a sudden it looked like the tide was turning. It got to a point where, in my opinion, the scorecards were about evened out. And then all of a sudden, Torres Jr. makes an entire shift in his game plan, changes his approach and how he's fighting, and he finishes up very, very strong and rightfully gets the decision in that fight. And so I was very impressed with the way that Torres Jr. showed his promise in the beginning, was able to adjust, adapt, and then go finish strong. It was a good sign. And listen, Vanello deserves a lot of credit. This is a guy that gave Efe Ajagba all we could handle just a couple months ago. He is a guy that seems to be a great gatekeeper, in my opinion, in the heavyweight division. I like his ability, what he brings to the table as a heavyweight. Not a sensational guy, not a guy that's ever going to be a legitimate contender or anything along those lines, but a guy that if you can get past, he's going to give you some good rounds. He's going to give you all you can handle. He's going to make you better as a fighter. And I think he just did just that for Richard Torres Jr. now. However, Richard Torres Jr. needs to have a big fight next. And I don't mean big, but I mean a fight with an American. Because I need to make a statement right now. The American heavyweight division is an absolute mess right now. It is pitiful. You have the older guys, Big Baby Miller, you have Deontay Wilder, you have Andy Ruiz, you have these guys that are older, past their prime. Sure, there's a hypothetical. Could they get back in the mix in the future? I mean, it's boxing. Anything can happen. Is anybody believing that's going to happen? Absolutely not. Also, Michael Hunter's in that mix as well. Forgot him and others. But then you skip like a whole generation of guys, and you have these young folks. Jared Anderson, Richard Torres Jr., the two main threats at the heavyweight division that are from America. And I'm not too high on either one of them from a standpoint of saying, hey, they're going to be world champions. Like, if I'm looking at young prospects, they're nowhere near what Imosa Toma is going to be. That's the number one prospect, possibly in boxing. I think it's him, Abdullah Mason. But we don't have anyone that's going to stand anywhere near that level. But what I want to see is that America needs to get to a point where we start identifying who that next great heavyweight is, or not even great. Who is the best heavyweight in America going forward? And why not make it Jared Anderson versus Richard Torres Jr.? Both those guys seem to be around the same area ranking-wise, and both guys seem to be heavyweights from America that are kind of working their way up, younger. Obviously, Jared Anderson's coming off that loss from, or not, he just had another win on Valentine's, but, the loss to Martin Bakole. But both guys need to start establishing themselves. And listen, both guys are from America. Both guys top rank. Both guys heavyweights. Let's make that fight happen. There's no reason that that's not the fight next for both guys. It makes sense. It's the next step up for both guys. Both guys, like I said, America, top rank, same promotion. Make the fight happen, guys. We want to see it be a good fight, or a decent fight, I should say, at the least. And at least at that point, America can say, okay, this is our guy. We got to rock with him one way or another. How great is he? I don't know. But that's the guy going forward. And they would probably put, whoever wins that fight would set themselves up for a guy that's probably ranked somewhere in the top 10 of the heavyweight division. It'd be a good step-up fight. And so that's what needs to happen, in my opinion, going forward in the heavyweight division for American fighters. That being said, folks, I just want to get on here and just get going a little bit in this boxing show. Some shows will be longer. Some shows might even be shorter. I'm going to give you guys so much boxing content going forward. Let me tell you this. I got a lot of guests lined up. I know you guys probably saw that there was going to be another guest I had set for today. Did not end up coming to fruition. Hopefully, I'll have him back on the show in the future. But I got all kinds of guests coming on, including hopefully tomorrow we'll have some guests. But I plan on this show being almost every single day now. I want to spend time breaking down boxing almost every day with you guys. So make sure to subscribe. Make sure to keep tuning in. You guys are not going to want to miss this show. I promise to have you guys covered on all aspects. Might even do some live fight coverage. I got all kinds of stuff I'm working on right now. And I'm ecstatic to see what God's got in store for this next show. But with that being said, I hope you guys have a great rest of you guys Monday. May God bless you guys all. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. All right. Talk to you guys soon. SchuZ out.